You're listening to the Reinvest Podcast, where each Tuesday we show business owners and entrepreneurs how to diversify into real estate by equipping you with the tools and tactics to build generational wealth. Your hosts, Garrett and Seth Simonillo.
Hey guys, welcome to the Reinvest Podcast. Excited to be here hosting today. No Seth, he is in Barcelona, Spain. That dirtbag. No, I'm just kidding. Good for him. But we have a great topic today, great episode we're going to jump into. And it's something that we haven't really touched on before, but is kind of an unseen value driver as the multifamily space continues to get more and more competitive. And operators, people that are buying and repositioning these properties, they need to figure out how to stand out and differentiate themselves in a competitive market. So here today with us is Marcy Sagel. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, we're excited, and thanks for bearing with me a little bit here this morning as we kind of get things around. But I am really interested to hear more about your company. First of all, I always like to ask this question. There's so many roads that lead into real estate investing. And so give us your touch point on why interior design, why multifamily, give us the background of your company.
So technically, I'm an interior designer. I have a great passion for interior design. And I had a position a long time ago, over maybe almost 28 years ago, that I had an architect who was heading up a very large public company that did multifamily projects around the country. He came to me and said, "Hey, can you redline these units for me? I know you guys he had heard me talk about cabinetry. Can you redline these and tell me where we're making some mistakes for dollar add value?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." And he's like, "You can charge me for it." I said, No, I got this. This takes really no time. I do it all the time. So I took all of his drawings from the architect. I redlined them. I gave him a whole list of the things that I would change and why I would change them, and instantly saved him with the price out of the new sheet of the red line cabinets. We probably saved closer to $1 million.
Wow.
Yep. Just shy of $1 million, large scale building. And all from just making a few tweaks to the sizes, the amount of drawers, the amount of tall pantries, those kinds of things, just saving dollars for the developer. So because we did that, he said to me, "I really would like to have you do the interior design for the building inside." And I said, "Well, I've never really done that kind of a scale of a project before." And he said, "I will work with you on that."
Wow.
I've been doing this a long time. He said, "I will hold your hand, walk you through the process, and we'll do it together." And I said, "Great." So that was my first area of doing a multifamily. And, it's almost 30 years later. We've been doing multifamily, and we specialize in market rate multifamily, affordable housing multifamily, senior, and student housing. So we kind of do all aspects of multifamily.
And the name of your company is MSA Interiors. Okay. And so I want to comment on that real quick, because I think that's a really cool on-ramp. I'm in a coaching service right now on the commercial real estate side of our business. And one of the main driving topics in that coaching program is being solutions focused. So in the real estate world, we're all salespeople, and everybody thinks that they're going to get sold if they interact with a commercial agent. And so, you commission breath. I mean, there's different ways to verbalize that type of sales agent. And they were talking about the way to differentiate yourself is to be a solutions-focused agent, which means I got to listen to my client to figure out what is their problem. And then B, I have to put enough energy into it to figure out how to actually provide a solution that may not immediately benefit me. So I see that, right? You were able to save him $1 million on cutting costs. And I mean, at least in my mind, I think interior design, I think expensive. I think like, I'm actually having to rein in that person to say, no, we can't do X, Y, and Z from an aesthetic perspective. And then he was willing to work with you and award you the contract on the building as a whole. That's awesome.
And, there's a whole lot of ways you can save money by working smartly in an interior design. So obviously you give a budget at the beginning, and we always stick to our budget, by the way. I think that's really key. Don't let anyone come back to you and say it's going to be another $250,000 for furniture and fixtures and art and accessories. No, if you do your job right, you're going to give them a budget range at the beginning, and it's going to include everything delivered. Okay. Delivered, installed, hung, all the art hung, everything installed, boxes taken away, all of that. So what I explain to people is that the way you get value and increase your value is that you basically want to design as a team with the developer. Don't let a designer just take you in a direction that may not be the right direction for the property. And I always say that. I teach a lot of masters in real estate programs to a lot of people that are doing all the financial crunching and have never really picked the creative side of it. Very different aspect of what it is, but it's actually super important to the project because people are leasing based on what it looks like, not just the rents.
Right.
So real big part of the process. So basically what I do, just to kind of get everybody in the development process, on board with how to do that, is we'll take a look at all the competing properties and we'll do like a little project sort of presentation. We kind of show them all of the looks of the units and the amenities. Then we list out all of the amenities. And then we say, okay, where should this building go? What direction do you think it should go in? Should it go in a, updated transitional? Should it go in a, modern, high-end, high-level, sophisticated? Like we give them like a bunch of different visuals to pick from. And we ask them, what area and direction do you think this should go in? Based upon what all your competitors are doing.
Yeah, I would think that a lot of the developers that are doing redevelopment of existing structure or just ground up development, right? They're coming to the table with pretty extensive market surveys of what's out there. And every asset class is different, right? So like Class A multifamily in an urban area is going to be different than Class A multifamily in more of a suburb, and the amenities that somebody would expect. So they're bringing a lot of that information to the table, and then you're saying it's your team's job to decipher that and kind of map out what that could look like.
Well, I'm also saying not only do we get their market share information, that market share information doesn't always have the creative details that we want to look at and to help us make a decision.
Yeah.
So they're giving us, here's your rents of all your competitors. Here's their exterior of the building. Here's their amount of amenity square footage. But we want to get into the nitty gritty of that. We want to see what amenities do they have? What are they missing? What do we think the new building should have, or the renovated building needs to have, in order to make it differentiate itself from the previous or what it was before, so to speak, or who you're competing against? So we always tell people, don't make decisions once you start construction.
Yeah, right. It's too late.
It's the biggest waste of money you can make. Yep. Okay. And don't let anybody tell you differently. You want to make all the decisions up front. You want to lock them in. You want to stick to your decisions. You want to stick to your finishes, and you want to stick to what was bid out in your package to the GC. Okay. If you start making changes and you let every sub try to pull something different, your project's not going to have a cohesive look to it. It's going to look like nothing. It's going to have nothing that resembles what you started out with, because you've got a flooring sub that's basically saying, oh, I can get a cheaper floor. Okay. Then you got a cabinet person going, oh, hey, I got a good deal on these cabinets I can get you.
Right.
And then you've got a tile sub going, well, I can get you a cheaper unit tile here. And none of it ends up looking good together. It doesn't work. It doesn't flow. It doesn't even resemble the look that everybody picked.
At the start of the project, they were like, man, we thought we were going for more of like a modern, and now it's eclectic budget is what we went for. So that's funny. So give us an example of like maybe a project. Yeah. Well, so first of all, if you're listening to this episode, one of the things I want to drive home for our audience is the correlation between design ROI, right? Because there is a very real monetary consideration of not over improving a property, but improving it in the right ways to A, be competitive, and to B, drive rents to, a higher level based on amenities and the aesthetic, which is kind of an intangible. The amenities are more tangible, right? Washer, dryer, hookup, common area with a workout, like those are very tangible things. Some of the aesthetic though is intangible. It's hard to quantify what ramification is that going to have on our top line revenue. And so the goal here is that somebody would listen to this and say, okay, this is how I can look at a project on the onset and some levers that I can pull in a very real and tangible way on making my property attractive, accessible, amenitized. So I just wanted to frame that a little bit, but give us an example of a past project, maybe in the last year, and how you guys spoke into that project and maybe implemented something that was overlooked in the way of aesthetic or amenity that had a really big impact.
So we do a lot of multifamily. We have anywhere between 40 and 60 projects a year,
That's crazy.
which is a lot.
That's a lot.
It is crazy. It's a lot, but they're always starting, and they're managed at different times. So you start a job, it ends up pausing, it ends up permitting problems, whatever the problems can be. It moves at different paces. So typically what we like to do is we like to basically start every project. We have a process for every single project, and that's how we do it. We have a format, we have a team we put in place. That team usually consists of a senior designer, a junior designer, a project manager, procurement team. We do it in-house. That's also really important because it's really important to get as much bang for your buck for the dollar. So what we try to do is we look at the project from where do we need to improve? How are we going to, improve upon this for the developer? So we ask questions like, is this a long-term hold?
Right.
Okay. Really, really important question. Are you going to try to sell this project in the next 5 to 10 years? Because if you are, we're going to design it a little bit differently than if we would for a long-term hold or a multi-generational hold, that kind of thing.
Right.
Typically what we want to do is we want to pick finishes that have a really, really long shelf life. Okay. The longer the shelf life, the less the developer has to sort of like fix things to upgrade it. So what we typically do is, tile is very expensive. Okay. It's very expensive to install. It's very expensive to remove.
Right.
So we can get a lot of bang for the buck with like wall murals, wallpaper, those kinds of things that are commercial grade that, they do everything that you can't do with a tile or surface finish.
That's a really interesting point. First of all, they're doing some crazy stuff with wallpaper nowadays. It has made a huge comeback. You see it a lot in hotels. I think they really run with that concept to texture and shape a space. But we had a guest on probably a year and a half ago that worked for, it was STR Cribs. And what they did is they were a turnkey outfit for interior design. Somebody would come to them and say, I want to do a short-term rental Airbnb concept in Phoenix, Arizona. And they would help them identify the property, totally design it, amenitize it, and then do the construction on it. What he said stuck out to me, that everybody's in an amenities arms race right now, right? So like before, it was gray paint, white trim, fresh countertops, people are happy.
Right.
Well, guess what? That was a 10-year-old strategy. So now the expectation level from a consumer perspective is a lot higher. And people want that urban feel. And so how do you bring the personality of an area into a property? I've seen a lot of murals be that anchor when you walk into a common area and it communicates some kind of flavor of a city, an MSA, some personality of where this is. I could see that being a really great low-hanging fruit way to drive that.
Yeah, it's also inexpensive to replace comparatively. So when you think of that, we put it in student housing all the time, which gets probably the most wear and tear of any type of building that we do. Okay.
True.
Like, can you imagine like back in college,
Oh my
seriously, the amount of wear and tear? And, you've got a lot of young people, a lot of moving parts. People are not taking care of their space the way you do as you get a little bit older. And so you have to put things in that really hold up. So we can do a whole hallway with a cool, like custom wallpaper that we do that looks like a mural that we do. And we could have a new one installed for $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's an inexpensive way to get a lot of bang for the buck and to really uplift the whole look of the amenity space and really create that texture and sort of vibrant art look that we want to have to make it look more interesting. And again, inexpensive to take it down and put a new one up to freshen it up, which is really the key as you're moving through the age of a property. So whether it be student housing, affordable housing, or market rate housing, all of those are really important to replace, refresh over the period of time. And furniture is obviously your easiest thing to replace, recover, whatever you need to do. But wall finishes, they can get really expensive. So we really want to look at things that aren't going to be a big dollar value add for any of the developers going forward for replacement costs.
Do you guys have a one sheet, might be an overly simplistic terminology of improvements compared to projected return on investment? So like I've seen this on the residential side. If you go through and replace and upgrade your windows to a vinyl double pane window, you're going to recoup 60% of that cost in the resale value of your home. Do you guys have that kind of data when a developer says, okay, why? And there's a justifiable.
So we've been doing this for a very, very long time. And the answer quickly is I've never developed a sheet, but we have statistics of, turnover and replacement. We really, really, really try to explain to the developer what is going to hold up and what's not going to hold up. For example, so if even the developer says, I want cheap, cheap, cheap furniture, okay, I'm going to clearly tell them what's going to happen to that cheap furniture.
3 years.
That's it. It's going to last 3 years if you're lucky, okay? And a little bit higher level, okay, with the right manufacturers. And we don't randomly pick manufacturers. We work with manufacturers that we know are going to give us a decent product and stand behind their product, because that's really important. We want to make sure it's going to hold up. You cannot be replacing an entire building worth of amenity in 3 years.
Right.
Nobody's budgeting for that. And so that's part of the whole understanding of understanding manufacturers, products, how they hold up. Example, I have all the time people come up with new vinyl materials that they want to put in. And I say to them, where has it been tested?
Yeah.
Where have you gotten any kind of responses? Okay, it's great that the flooring sub says he can get a better deal on this, but I don't want it to shred or peel. And then you have to replace people in a unit. Once they're in the unit, you don't want to have to replace anything while they're in the unit.
Right.
You want to do everything you can to not have that happen.
Well,
okay?
And when you're talking about a large project, you're not talking about, I'm rolling the dice on an 100 square foot space. You're talking about 30,000 square foot of floor covering. You don't want to roll the dice on a speculative flooring product that seems like it's the new trendy thing.
Yeah. And so I've worked with a lot of manufacturers to come up with color lines and price points for multifamily. And I still don't want to randomly put it into someone's building until I know it's going to hold up and it has the warranty that we're looking for, that the installer understands what to do, what not to do. We have, big conversations about that. We don't want it to fail. And so, and big part of that is the installation process, understanding how they're going to install it. I have favorite stories about how installers didn't test the moisture rating before everything was installed. And really baseline thing that you need to do, you should be doing moisture readings every single week in your building construction as you're installing the product.
BTW, if you ever have to work with a flooring manufacturer on some kind of a warranty, they are going to put the lion's share and burden of that on the installer, and it's not like my father-in-law was a floor layer for 40 years, and I helped him lay floor. So first of all, when you say tile is hard to tear out, I can vouch for that. But no, I mean, you think that hey, this failed, let's go to the manufacturer, and they're going to say, well, like, what you don't understand is they have very specific installation CYA language in there, and most installers don't do it to the level that the manufacturer was going to warranty it at. So yeah, you're not going to get a lot of support from them on that.
No. And so when we do all of our documentation, it also includes the installation guidelines that they need to follow. And the only time we ever have a fail is when they don't follow those guidelines. And it's all provable, obviously, because the first fail is that they didn't do a moisture reading. So that on a regular basis. So what you can just ask, like, what was the moisture reading before you started?
Right.
And of course, they have to produce that, and it should be in all the documentation that everybody's involved in, whether it's Procore or whatever it is. That's pretty easily, produced. So we try to make sure that not only are we supplying good materials, but that they also understand what the installation guidelines are for all of our products, whether it be tile, floor, cabinetry, countertop, you name it, any of the millwork. We do all of our own millwork drawings and elevations. So making sure that everything is looked at. And then part of that also is just the coordination of all of that. Like, so you have this beautiful wall and you've got all this art that you've figured out is going to go in these different spaces. And then you come for install day or your walkthrough, and there's fire stuff in the middle of your wall. And you're like, what is this doing? Okay. Because the coordination didn't happen.
Right.
So, all of the teams weren't sort of following and looking at our drawings to see what was on that particular wall. So they just slapped it up on the wall and they're like, oh, okay, I did my job. And then we can't put any kind of art on that wall because there's nothing that's allowing us to stick it in the middle. We're actually working around these fire items that just look terrible. So there's so much coordination that goes into these larger projects. And I tell everybody, it's all about the meetings, the weekly progress meetings, and the weekly coordination. And it's up to each team to follow those through to make sure that everything is moving in the direction it needs to move in without finding surprises in the field. So,
and I want to extract out, just kind of as we're walking through this process, here's some of the things that I'm hearing is involve the design team early on.
Very early.
Because that's like architectural design phase. It's the rubric, and then feel confident enough and spend some extra time on the front end so that you're not making last minute changes, which are going to be costly and confusing and delay the project. And then also understand what your goal is on the project. Am I leasing this up, taking it to market, and selling this off to an institutional investor after development? Am I holding this, and this is a generational thing, and we're going to be able to expense and depreciate the fixtures, knowing that we're going to pass this along in the family, understanding what your goals are with the investment, working with the design team to figure out what are the ways not just to save on cost, but to strategically pick out the right types of aesthetic and then fixtures that are going to be conducive for the space. And then you've given us some really specific examples on, wall murals, wall coverings as a cheaper alternative, and knowing that when I have to update this space, right? So like if I have a pro forma, I'm going to budget in there over a 10-year period coming back through. And this is what all the big franchises do, McDonald's, right? They know when they're going to do their next remodel. And what is that cost going to be based on what I'm putting in today? So there's a forward-looking aspect of it. What are some other ways that you've seen, developers or multifamily operators pick out certain amenities or design aesthetic that are like those really levers that have an outsized proportion?
So when you're picking amenities, and we do get very creative with amenities with a lot of our development teams and also with our property management teams. So when we sit down early on, we typically involve the property manager, okay, or whoever that property management's going to be, because whether it's a big company, a big national company, or it's a smaller company, they have standards. How many people are going to sit at a desk? Are they going to have a laptop? Or are they going to have a desktop? Okay. Are they going to be portable, lockable spaces? Okay. Then are they going to need, a locked cabinet to hold any kind of fobs or key track or anything of that nature? We ask those questions to the property management group. We also ask them, what kind of square footage do you envision for your fitness area? What kind of back of house stuff do you need? Okay. We need all these informational things up front so that we can space plan accordingly without having to add things later. We want to know all that information up front, so we're incorporating it. Are you going to have, where's your maintenance area? You're going to have a wet mop sink area. Are you going to have a storage area for appliances, maybe in the garage or a separate building for that? Where are all of these things going to be? And we have to get those answers up front so that we can kind of what I call back out those spaces from our final square footage. So once we do the basics, I call it, then we come back and we get creative with some of the amenities. So we want to look at the very biggest thing that people are interested in now are the package areas, okay? Number one thing that people are interested in is being able to get their packages easily and securely. So as you know, and as I know, over the years, package systems have changed more dramatically than any other thing in a multifamily housing, okay? So we know that it's going to continue to change dramatically in another 10 years from now. So we have to design it accordingly. We want to make sure that we have enough square footage that can accommodate. And even if we don't do it now, that we have laid out the area, maybe with another adjacent space to it that's being used for vending machines or cold storage or food drop-off area or any of those kinds of things, so that we could eventually down the road enlarge that package area if we have to.
What's the rule of thumb on like square footage per unit for a common area for packages?
So it depends if it's suburban or urban, number one. And then it also, the other thing that we like to look at is, where are the trucks pulling in? The mail truck, the FedEx truck, the UPS truck, where are they pulling into the building? Because that has to be sorted out architecturally from the beginning. And also from a space planning point inside, we don't want to have all those carts being dragged through the entire amenity space because they get banged up. We want to make sure it has the shortest path from the truck delivery to his cart being pulled inside and where the mail and the packages are going to get delivered. So we have to look at all of that because it really does put much more wear and tear on the inside of the building. So again, making sure that every space is flexible, walls can change, it can be enlarged. Those are the things that are going to change the most over the course of the next 10 to 20 years if it's a long-term hold. And then we look at sort of those fun, exciting kind of amenities, like, how many square feet are we going to put for the fitness? Well, we might be doing a building that has a giant gym nearby, okay? So we may not want it to be as large of a gym inside the building. We may want to make it more studio-like. So weight area, we may want to have a, private studio TV area where you can, do your own fitness, call in fitness, that kind of thing, rather than more equipment and larger square footage if we have a really great gym nearby. And so we do look at those things when we're kind of figuring out the amenities. And then we add sort of all the creative fun things, like everyone, especially since COVID, we like these Zoom rooms, okay? They're ready to go. You can bring your laptop, drop in and have a great Zoom call.
Sounds like a co-working space.
Yeah, it's a good co-working space, but we kind of make them more functional. So we might make a couch with a TV so you can kind of hang out and have your calls and call-ins all day, being a little more comfortable. Or we'll just make it a table with a TV that can hold anywhere from 3 to 5 people. If you want to host like a little mini meeting or some kind of structured thing that you're doing. we look at all of that. We try to get creative. We try to make them functional. And we also now sprinkle a lot of amenity spaces throughout the building rather than just hosting them in the lobby or mezzanine area. We may have some up on the roof, may have a green roof. We may have a outside track on the top floor, that you can walk in or run in.
It's more explorable. It's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, just moving those amenities throughout the building rather than just making those amenities just structured in one space. So just changing it up a little bit, making it a little bit more sort of like boutique-y.
So in the spirit of time, we're going to skip past our smaller pockets, but after being in this industry in 30 years, there's so much from a business ownership perspective, from just understanding the industry and how it's changed. We're going to go into a show segment that we call our little nugget. So Marcy, this is the area of our show where you impart to our listeners a very tried and true principle to the way that you operate yourself in your business. So this isn't necessarily a hack related to the mechanics of interior design, but maybe more something personally to how you conduct yourself.
So I think it's really important to not just do a job and walk away from a job and think you're done. And I think that's kind of my nugget. My nugget is check in 6 months, see where the lease up is going. I follow lease up. I think it's super important. I take pride in the fastest lease up that clients have ever had. That's really important to me because it's a win for the developer. Then I also check in with the property manager to see what kind of maintenance issues they're having. I want to see what they like, what they don't like. I want to make sure we're not speccing something going forward that isn't really working for someone and learning from it. So these are the little nuggets that I, as a business owner, like to take away with me, because I always say you're only as good as your last project.
Oh, that's
and
good.
Only as good as a project that went well. So you want to make sure that you're giving as much dollar value and maintenance. I call it maintenance structure. We want to make sure that light bulbs aren't hard to replace, for maintenance. We want to make sure that, things have a list of how to clean things. These are the nuggets that I want to give to a developer so that they can run their property great once we walk away from installing it.
Which, honestly, you have to have a measure of boldness to enter in to get that feedback. I think a lot of us are afraid that we're kind of like, okay, on to the next thing, which is the inclination. And then it's also of like, well, do I want to know how it's going, right? But that's how you get the clarity moving forward, and then also create those raving fans and maybe even salvage a situation where there was a bump that you didn't know about that you have a chance now to go back and correct. I love that advice. In closing, excuse me, what does it look like for people to follow your success, connect with you from this episode?
So you can always reach us through our website at msainteriors.com. And we're happy to answer any questions that you have about multifamily. And, if you need any kind of guidance or just want to ask us certain questions, material questions, financial questions about it, we're happy to answer those.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much today for giving us a look into something that most operators don't consider all the time, but is absolutely important to having a profitable investment. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
As always, excited that you joined us for another episode of the Reinvest Podcast. If you want to learn how you can use your hard-earned capital to diversify into real estate, go to our website, reinvestcapital.us, and shoot us a message. Move farther, reach higher, and grow deeper.